it is in a way punishing, but you couldn't get these larger lessons through the softer path.
That is exactly right. I learned that night that the difference between discomfort, even extreme discomfort, and danger is very far.
Give us the short version of how you got from that world to being like, I need to go out in the desert and trying to survive for 14 days.
I was like, what's the only thing harder than politics or Hollywood?
Going from, that 5,500 square foot house in the Hollywood Hills now to a truck.
Yeah.
Have to say, I'm pretty stoked on those choices. I've never felt more happy and more free.
Welcome to 2%. I'm your host, Michael Easter. Most of us live in optimization mode. We pick the fastest route, the safest neighborhood, the most efficient schedule. We always seek comfort. But a life that is optimized for ease and comfort also removes us from the experiences that make life worth living. Adventure, it has been totally engineered out of our everyday lives, and we are paying for it in ways that we don't even realize. So we have two guests who are coming on today to talk about adventure, how to get more of it in your life, and how it can fundamentally change you as a human, and how it doesn't always have to be this big extreme thing that's hard to find. Although, if you do decide to go to the extremes, your life will probably change a lot. First, we are going to bring on Jay Carson. He was a political operator and a Hollywood producer and writer for years. He was winning the game of life, but then an emergency happened. And he realized that although he was really great in all these worlds that had a lot of spin, a lot of narrative, he was not competent in the real world. He couldn't handle things that came his way. So what he did is he decided to take a survival course. Took 2 weeks in the middle of the Utah desert. He had nothing with him, and it totally changed his life. It made him happier. It made him healthier. More important, it made him a far more competent human being in his day-to-day life and made him appreciate just how amazing modern-day life is. After that, we're going to bring on Sinway Xavier. Sinway is an adventurer who argues that you can find adventure anywhere, even in your own backyard. He has learned this by taking the hard way and the path less traveled his entire life. So he's going to tell us why this summer you should get in your car, travel somewhere a little bit off the grid, and go explore the spaces that are right out your back door. So let's get into the episode. All right, now we're going to bring on Jay Carson. For most of his career, he was a high-level political operator. He was the communications director for President Clinton. Then he started screenwriting. He worked on House of Cards and also The Morning Show. And then during COVID, the power went out, and he realized that he had no idea what to do in the event of a big emergency. He was not self-reliant at all. And so he took an extreme wilderness course, and it totally changed his life and taught him new ways of living in the world, acting in the world, and how to be self-reliant. All right, Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michael. It's so good to be here.
All right, so for people who don't know you yet, I think we need to set this up. So you spent about... and are still spending 25 years in some of these super optimized, high-pressure environments. And then in 2021, you sign up for this 14-day survival course in the Utah desert, and now you are an instructor at the school. So give us the short version of how you got from that world to being like, I need to go out in the desert and trying to survive for 14 days.
I was like, what's the only thing harder than politics or Hollywood? No, I really, I think, I went from like probably the second worst business in America to the worst business in America, from politics to Hollywood. But I joke, but I think that there's something to that. There's an unreality to the world in both politics and Hollywood, and it's the world's less real in Hollywood than it is in politics, right?
In what sense?
There are actual consequences to decisions in politics, right? Like actual consequences to real human beings. And that's not the case in Hollywood, right? Like there's consequences to the people on your show or your movie, but it's not, the decisions that one makes in Hollywood don't affect the lives of millions of people. I want to be clear. I love writing, right? I'm not complaining about that part. It's an amazing job to get to have. But I think that I was, without knowing it, I think I was longing for something more real, more concrete, more tactile. And there was a few incidents that happened that we can get into that led me to want to go do a Boulder Outdoor Survival School course. But I think what was going on under the surface was this feeling of a lack of connection to the real world. And I wanted to fix that.
Yeah. For those who are not familiar with BOSS, give us the breakdown of what it is.
It's so awesome. I mean,
it is so awesome. I can fact check that as a journalist. I did a mini course. It's awesome.
It's so awesome and so difficult. And I think that, I only understood why my 14-day course had such an impact on me after I read your book, right? The Comfort Crisis. It was this thing where ex post facto, I think that I used my Latin correctly. I went to a public school in Macon, Georgia. So, I was like, oh, that's why it felt like my life was changed over 14 days. But that is what happened. My perspective on life in general and on my life was changed over the course of 14 days. And so essentially what we do at BOSS is take people in the wilderness and teach them how to survive with the land using almost no gear, right? It's essentially a knife and a water bottle. There's a little bit more than that, but there is no tent, no sleeping bag, no GPS, no matches, no phones, no internet, no any of the other stuff. And so you really learn how to live off the land and with the land. And the power of that and the difficulty of that it's just profound. I say that, I say, and it's true, that it's the most profound experience of my life aside from my marriage and the birth of my kids.
And wasn't it prompted because, was it a power outage or something? And you realized oh my God, if an emergency actually happened, I am completely incompetent. I have no idea what to do. So tell us about that.
So I grew up, I just mentioned, I grew up in Macon, Georgia, and I was a really outdoorsy kid, right? It was pre-phones and my parents, we had a TV, but my parents wouldn't let me watch it basically ever. And I spent a bunch of time outdoors, and I love the outdoors. I feel very at home in the outdoors. When my kids were born, my oldest is 13 and a half. I didn't know what to do with them. I was like, what do you do with a kid? And I had this instinct inside that you take them outdoors. And we live in Los Angeles, but we had moved to Topanga Canyon, which you can see in the background is not skyscrapers. And, there's a lot of nature around us. Some of the best hiking trails, some of the most beautiful hiking trails in America are like right out the door. So I started taking these kids out into the wilderness. And it wasn't long before I realized inside, you don't really know what you're doing. If you got you out there by yourself not knowing what you're doing, okay, but you're taking little kids into the wilderness and going deeper and deeper because I'm someone that pushes myself.
Yeah.
And then we started camping, and I just realized I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But it was a nagging, quiet voice in the background for a while until the beginning of COVID. And remember, there's stories on the news that the world is ending, and it sort of feels like a zombie apocalypse a bit. I have to set that back up so that I don't seem totally crazy with this next part. And we're like 10 days into it, and a bunch of countries in Europe are shut down, and America's starting to shut down, and the power goes out at our house. Mm. And I describe it in my book, which is because it was nighttime, and the hum in the house, the hum of all the electric stuff, the fridge and the dishwasher and the things charging, and it just went out, and I was like, that's the power. Yeah. And my head went to the worst movie I've ever seen. I was like, it's definitely 28 Days Later.
Totally. Because the context is like, no one knows what's going on. Everyone thinks the world is ending. And then bam, power's out. There's your sign.
Yeah. And I really believe that things are meant to be. Like, that was supposed to scare me. And it turned out that it was a power outage on our street because they were working on the transformers, right? But we don't have cell service here. So I drove into town and I called Southern California Edison, sure that like no one would answer or I would hear them being eaten by the zombies. And she was like, yeah, it's an outage on your street. It'll be back on in 90 minutes. And it was. Yeah. But the moment stuck with me.
Yeah, it's like this realization that power goes out, you have no service. You just go, I I have no idea how to figure this out. I gotta call someone and I don't have service. Like maybe I should start to figure out what I should do in a situation like this and anything else that might pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
So Boss is in Boulder, Utah. And for listeners who don't know where that is, which is probably every single listener.
Exactly.
It's in
Boulder, Colorado. I know that place. And it's like, no, Boulder, Utah.
Boulder, Utah. It's in southern-ish Utah, middle of the state. How many people live in Boulder?
400 or 500.
Yeah, 400 or 500. So how soon after that happened do you end up driving up to Boulder, Utah and taking the course?
The beauty of it was that there was a long lead time to going. So I got to have the reassurance of signing up, but I didn't have to actually do it for a while.
Yeah.
And I think if it had been 2 weeks from then, I would have been like, oh, they have a course available in 2 weeks. I got to go twist my ankle, so I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I was basically a year away from the next courses because the season shut down. That first season shut down because of COVID.
Okay.
And so I signed up. It was about a year later, and I showed up for a September course, a September 14 day, and it changed my life. It was sort of at Boss, we max out at 12 students on a course. There were 12 of us.
2 instructors?
These incredible instructors, Michael Tarallo and Tobias Corwin. The most, I would be like, what's that? What's that? How do I do this? What's that? I never met 2 more capable humans in my life. I mean, they knew how to do everything. So I would be like, what's that plan? He's like, well, it's this. And the Latin name for it is this. And you could use it for this, but not only the leaf, the stem will actually do. And it's just like, what?
Yeah. This information that is there's something that's so inherently cool about that. And I almost think it goes back to the fact that humans did have to know that sort of information for all of time. And then things changed and life modernizes. And now, if I walk outside and someone said, hey, what plant is that? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, until 200 years ago, that's the crazy part. Until 200 years ago, we all basically knew how to do everything we needed to do to take care of ourselves. And then I think the more modern we get, the less we know in terms of what to do to take care of ourselves. And I felt like I was missing something as a human. I was hungry for more generalized skills and a greater sense of capability. And I got that through 14 days, like a sense of like, I can do that. I can try it. It might not be as good as the carpenter would do, but I can try. And then there's this feeling of, there's a feeling of self-worth, honestly, no better way to put it. That like, I am a capable person.
So it's 14 days, but tell us what was the first day like?
Just real. I don't want to scare people away from the courses because they're amazing, but like it's insane.
Yeah. So there's 11 other people there.
Mm-hmm.
You get these 2 instructors, then what happens?
You spend a bunch of time your first day. By the way, we do 7-day courses and 28-day courses too. There was no way I've never even done a 28-day. Like I have got 4 little kids. I'm not doing that for a while.
Yeah. You
show up on the property in Boulder. There's a long orientation. I think at the moment that I tell this story in my book also, the moment that I was like, oh, this is something else, is when they did a shoe rubbing. So they like hand out crayons and a piece of paper and they say, take off your left or right shoe. They told us which one. I think it was the left. Take off your left shoe and do a rubbing. Take the crayon and put the paper on the bottom of your shoe and do a rubbing. And I was like, and then write your vital statistics in the top right-hand corner. And I was like, excuse me, why do we need this? And they were like, just very matter of fact, like, oh, in case you get lost, we need the right information to turn into search and rescue. And we want to make sure that the footprints we're tracking are actually yours.
Holy shit.
I was like, you've never had to use these before, right? And they're like, yeah, we have to use them pretty frequently. So, make sure it's accurate. And then they were like, but don't worry, we've found every single person that's ever gotten lost.
Don't worry, we're good at this. This shoe is really just the map directly to where you are in space.
then I was like, oh wow, this is real. This is not like we also live in this Disneyland society where it's like, or this Vegas society where like you live in,
Yeah.
I can go to Paris. You could drive to Paris in 30 minutes. It's right down to, and you could go to New York right after that, walk down. There's this fakeness to everything. And I was like, oh shit, this is real. Like this isn't a fake shoe rubbing to make me feel like I'm doing something real. This is because they might need to track my ass down if I get lost from the group. And I was like, oh, and so then you hike off the property. A lot of this is getting okay with a loss of control. And so where are we going? We'll see. We'll see is the most common answer. If you're looking for details about what's in the future, we'll see is going to be the answer. And so we hike for a while. There's also where we start out on a trail. We just walk right off the property. We find a trail in the woods. We're not on a trail for a while. A mile in, we find a trail and I go, okay, we're on a trail, right? I'm a trail hiker. I show up to this. I didn't, I didn't know any other kind of hiking existed. I was like, well, the Donner Party didn't use a trail and like they all died, and so we're on a trail and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And I'm in the front right behind the instructor, Tarallo, because I don't want to get lost, right? I'm not going to be in the back, like where whoever's going to pick me off. And we're on a trail for like 200 yards. And then he cuts up off the trail and I hear him mutter, man, I hate trails. And I'm like, wait, you're the head instructor. You hate trail. What are we get? Last trail I saw for 14 days.
Awesome.
So we're just through the woods, through the desert, through the, up and over until it's sometime in the middle of the night. And they don't like it when I give away this detail, but it's online anyway. You're walked into, and it's in my book. So
yeah,
you're walked into a spot, you circle up and they go, great work today, guys. Good night. And it's dark, really dark. We try to start courses on nights where there's no moon. And so it's really, really, really dark. Darkest sky in the lower 48, by the way, is right over that area of Utah. And we look around and someone goes, this is like a minute goes by and someone's like, did they leave? Like we can't see each other. It's that kind of dark. And
yeah.
Someone's like, I don't think so. They wouldn't have left. And so there's this debate among the group and they had left. They were gone. Yeah. And right then that gnawing sense of, I don't know how to take care of myself. God, I feel emotional talking about it. I was like, oh, I have no clue how to take care of myself.
No clue what to do.
I have been fronting to everyone. I have absolutely no idea what to do. Which didn't stop me from taking charge of my group and suggesting that we sleep on the sand that was around us because it's soft.
Mm-hmm. Which is a bad move.
It's the equivalent of tossing an anvil to a drowning person. Here, hold this anvil. It'll help you. Like I suggested to the group that we basically lay on the coldest, wettest, most thermo-deregulating substance that I possibly could have suggested we lay down on.
Yeah. Let's lay on this bed of ice, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, ice would have been worse.
How'd you sleep?
Oh my gosh. Just awful. Like I had this, I don't know what time it is, right? So I get really, really, really cold. Like, and what I discovered through that night and through the next few nights, because to cut a little bit forward, what I learned over the very quick next 48 hours was how to never feel that way again. And I have never slept really cold again if I've done the work to make sure I don't feel cold. I know exactly how to not feel cold in any environment. I don't need a sleeping bag. I don't need a tent. I don't need a fire. I know how to make myself feel warm. But then I didn't know how. I'm laying on the freezing cold sand. I might have been like crying. I was in such, I was so scared. And I cry a lot. I'm not trying to dodge a crying story, but I was like, I was really intense. And I think I figured out which way east was, or I guessed which way east was. And I just started staring at the horizon, just waiting for the sun to come back up. I was so cold and scared that I started to have this awful thought that, like, what if this is the day that the sun burns out? And I was like, my only hope is for the sun to come back up. Like, I cannot get warm.
Yeah.
What if it doesn't come back up? Which is really sounds crazy, but I was just in that perseverating place. Yeah, I was spiraling. I was really spiraling. And the sun came back up, and I learned that night that and this is another thing I learned from your book, but I learned that the difference between discomfort, even extreme discomfort, and danger is very far, right? Danger is not nearly as close to extreme discomfort as we are taught.
Yeah.
And we teach our kids this more and more and more. Discomfort is dangerous. Get away from discomfort. It's like, no, which has created a comfort crisis. I feel like I just thought of that phrase. It's like this, I feel like
it's a good idea. Someone tried a book called that. I do feel like because we keep pushing that farther, once you step away from that even a little bit, people spiral, even though they're not even close to the danger zone yet. And it's almost like you need to spend time in that spot where it's like, oh, you need to be there in order to realize, no, I'm going to be fine. Yeah, this kind of sucks, but sun's going to come up despite me thinking maybe it won't, and I'll be fine the next day.
Suck is so good for me. I need some suck. You know, like, I didn't have any suck in my life, and I didn't have any real discomfort in my life. And so, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to I'm sorry, but I keep pitching your book because what made sense for me during that night, afterward, that reason that night made sense to me and why it had such a profound effect on my life was that I realized that absent true discomfort, this brain was evolutionarily seeking discomfort and problems in other places. So the temperature in the room's not right. This meal isn't the perfect. I'm in a middle seat. What do you mean the plane's late? What is just all of the crap? You know what I mean? A hotel room by the elevator, and I'm going to have to listen to it ding all night long. Like, this bed isn't comfortable. Like, I don't even like these pillows. This was my voice before boss, you know? The traffic, oh, this person's going to merge in front of me. Like, just get. And then I had that night, and I was like, dude, you don't even know. Like, a room by the elevator, how about I sleep on the floor by the elevator? At least there's like thin, dirty carpet and I wouldn't be freezing. You know, like just a totally different shift that has stayed with me. That's the craziest part.
Talk to me about the fact that the instructors are always saying, oh, we'll see. We'll see where we go. We'll see what happens. I don't know. What is the purpose of that? And what did you learn from that?
The purpose is to get this to let go, get the planning monkey mind. Yeah. Get the planning. Yes. No, my yellow hat, just to get my yellow hat to let go. Yeah. No, get to get the monkey mind to let go of needing to know, you know, I need to know what's next, because then it will, honestly, you know, I've been a meditator for a long time, like, because then I can get out of right now. This is uncomfortable right now. If I can know what's next, and it'll probably be better than this, hopefully, maybe. And so we just say, we'll see. And it forces us to stay. It forces the students to stay in right now, you know? And so, and also some of it's, we don't want to spoil the surprise. There's when I finished the course, I was like, I love Joseph Campbell, and I read a lot of his work, and I was like, this feels like a hero's journey. Like, this has the arc to the Joseph Campbell hero's journey. So in researching my book, I go and talk to Dave Westcott, who's essentially the founder of Boss. Okay. And Westcott goes, yeah, I was trying to base a lot of it on Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. Like, that's awesome. By design. And so if you know what the next phase is going to be, you're going to start, oh, okay, well, tomorrow they're going to deprive us of this, and we're going to have to learn how to do that. Now I'm thinking about that. And so it's just, you've got to be in the phase of the hero's journey that you're in.
Yeah. And for listeners who aren't familiar with the hero's journey, and correct me if I get any of the specifics wrong, but Campbell basically studied all these myths throughout different cultures at different time periods. And when he pulled back, he realized they all kind of had the same narrative arc. And the purpose of these myths was in order to teach people what was important in life and how humans grow. And so basically at the start of every story, you would have this character where everything is great and comfortable in their life. And then either a problem inserts itself or there's a call to adventure. They hesitate. They're like, I don't want to deal with this bullshit. This is going to be hard. I don't want to leave this comfortable world. But then when they accept the call, they go into this landscape of uncertainty and trials and struggles. But by going through that, they ultimately learn things about themselves and the world they came from that fundamentally changes them forever. And then they leave that experience a different person with sort of new powers, if you'll call it. Oh, much like your experience, right? You enter that going, middle seat sucks. Someone cut me off. This bed is too springy. And then you find yourself sleeping in the dirt going, good God, I wish I had that springy bed. And so then when you come back and you end up in a hotel that is, maybe not absolutely perfect, you're like, oh, this is still totally fine in the grand scheme of times. But yeah, I'm going to have a great night of sleep.
Exactly. I mean, that's the hero's journey to a T. And it's what I realized at some point I was on during the boss course. And the profundity of it, the lasting profundity is that when you go through a journey like that, it elevates your long-term experience, and it elevated mine. There was a way I began to carry myself after that with real confidence. And that's what, because I know you've done it, that's what you see in the boss instructor.
Yeah.
Real confidence. Like the most badass people I've ever known in my life, men and women, they don't front at all. Yeah. They're not bragging about their skills. They're not like flexing about this or that. They're so humble and so understated. And then you're like, they're like MacGyver. Like, how do you build a helicopter out of this, piece of, piece of sycamore? And well, you just do, and you're, whoa, you can do that? Like what? Yeah. And so that's what I felt like I left the course with true confidence.
One thing that I think is really interesting is you have told me that on boss courses, people that you would think are total badasses, like former Navy SEALs, Special Forces operators, they often don't do quite as well. And why is that?
Attitude is what I've seen makes the most successful boss student. And that's not a take it down attitude. It's really realizing that you've got to go with the flow of what's happening out there, that the course is going to take you on its own flow, and that nature is going to also take you on its own flow. What we're doing by having no gear, and this is Dave Westcott's line, the founder of Boss, is we're stripping away all the distance between you and nature. Most people, I worship REI, I go there all the time. But like most REI campers are putting as much distance between themselves and nature as possible. They're going to be out there, but they're going to have as much distance as possible. And Boss takes nature and you, and you're like that.
Smashes them together.
Distance. And so a storm comes in, a weather change, the water hole is dry. You have got to roll with nature when you're out there. And sometimes the most rigid type A people have a hard time rolling with that. And so overconfidence is a real problem too. And so, a Navy SEAL will come out there I've done this, I've done SEAL training, and it's very different than SEAL training. And so you'll have the middle school principal who is, 53, but rolls with a lot of bullshit coming her way every day at school, and no thought that she can control it, right? I'm gonna roll with this, and the superintendent called, and this mom is yelling at me, and it just navigates it like that. And that person can crush on a course where a Navy SEAL who's like, it will be this way and this way and this way and this way and this way. It is not going to be this way and this way and this way and this way. And so that is sometimes where the badass military types, we have plenty of military types who come and do an amazing job on the course, but it's the inability to the CEO who can't let go of the fact that they're not in charge. The coolest part is the course runs the gamut. Every course runs the gamut from, a CEO to, a 20-year-old college student who's there on scholarship. And that is one of my favorite parts about it, is the real melting pot that happens out there on a course. It's a gathering of people who would not otherwise probably mix with each other.
Yeah. There's a line from this guy who was the Grateful Dead's band manager in the 60s and 70s. So they would show up at these spots with all their stuff and be constructing their shows. And it was just full-blown chaos. And usually police would show up and they would go, "Hey, who's in charge here?" And the guy would just go, "The situation's in charge, man."
The situation's
in charge. And I feel like that's kind of what happens when you're out in nature. You can do as much as you can, but the situation is ultimately in charge. And the more I think people can realize that, it allows you to pivot and go with the flow and stop trying to do things and control things when that's ultimately counterproductive.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've seen, honestly, the only people I've seen, and I've only been doing it this will be my 5th season coming up, so I've not been doing it forever, but the only people I've seen leave a course are the kinds of people, not Navy SEALs, right? I haven't personally seen a Navy SEAL leave a course, but we've had that happen, on more than one occasion. It's often the fittest, most badass person on the course, and they just cannot let go over the course of it. Then that is, they're sort of missing the lesson in it, which is what we're doing here is learning how to roll with what comes our way, not trying to bend the situation to our will.
For people who think this sounds masochistic, what do you tell them?
It's so beautiful. I can't wait I'm doing one of our 2 hardest courses this year. I did the other hardest one 2 years ago. It's the hunter-gatherer course. Was 2 years ago. So no food except there are some rations on on what's called our expedition courses. The hunter-gatherer, there's no food unless you catch it, find it, or kill it yourself. So it is basically 14 days of starvation, because even though we're teaching you the lessons of how to catch and kill food, it's like, if you had LeBron tutor me for 4 or 5 days on how to dunk, the idea that I could dunk on day 5 is, no, I'm 5'10". Yeah. I'm not gonna. And so you've got the best people in the world teaching you how to trap and fish and hunt and forage. On day 5, you're not going to be amazing at it. Right? Like my traps would catch my hand more than they would catch like rats and mice and squirrels. I'm doing the Wilderness Navigator course in July, which is just, you're navigating solo off a map and compass. It's a circuitous way of getting to your answer. And I can't wait to get out there. It is such a reset for me. I get so much quiet time. I get 14 days without my phone. There's nice. No phone call, no interruption. I do my best creative work. I almost always come back from a course with a new movie to write in my head, a new book to write, a new approach to my family or wife. And the way, and it's just, I can't wait. It's so beautiful. And it's not 14 days of sleeping in the sand and freezing. Like, we are not trying to punish students. We are trying to help.
That's only a vehicle. That's a vehicle for these larger things. But you need that. It is in a way punishing, but you couldn't get these larger lessons through the softer path.
That is exactly right. Like, my brain, if they had been like, there's a theoretical idea that you could be cold on a given night. Now I'm in a classroom, right? Now I'm going to teach you a lesson on how not to be cold. I'd be like texting, looking up, but I froze for a night. And then they said, do you want to learn how to not do that again? I've never paid more attention to a lesson in my life. I mean, I know, I remember the words. Now we're doing this, and now we're doing this, and you can learn this, and you can learn. And we learned to build duff beds, and, I can build a duff bed anywhere as a result. And so then the second night I sleep warm, and I can't believe it because I don't have a sleeping bag. Yeah. And I don't even know how to build a shelter yet, right? It's just a huge duff bed that I burrow into. And there's so much joy that I get when I'm out there. There's a lot of quiet time, a lot of beauty in nature, a lot of moving quietly through the land. So seeing tons of animals that I wouldn't see otherwise. And I love it. It's not punishing at all. It's difficult, but not punishing.
Yeah. Now, obviously you're not doing boss courses every month. What do you do in your daily life now to get some of these lessons?
I just
how do you
sleep in
use
the
it?
yard. No, I turn the air conditioning to 48 every night and sleep on the floor. No, there are plenty of people who come to Boss to learn how to live this way all the time. And I think that's awesome. It's not me. Like I go to Boss to help me appreciate the life that I have, right? I don't want to sleep on the ground in a duff bed every night of the year. Not even for 50 nights of the year. I don't want to. I like nice hotels. I like all that stuff. I just don't want to be the guy that's complaining about the middle seat or the room by the elevator or this, sort of BS made up complaints.
How has your Boss course affected your work stress levels? Did it change that at all?
To such a degree that it's almost unbelievable. And I had, back to that perspective. So yeah, my perspective on middle seats and a room by the elevator is great, but like my perspective on what really matters in terms of stress, it is the amount of stress and pressure I can handle after a Boss course it's kind of, I haven't reached it yet. It's sort of the sky's the limit. And because I have an easier approach to things, and then that actually leads to more success because I don't approach things with fear and gripping, because I'm like, this is not going to be as hard as not having water for 2 days or food for 5 days or sleep. This won't be that hard. This just will not be that hard. This is not a real problem. This person I'm working with is annoying. This thing isn't going exactly the way I want. I have the perspective on that. I had the wonderful mashup of right after my 14-day course, I was pitching a television show with Hugh Jackman. So we were, I was the creator of the show. He and I were executive producers on the show together. And 2 days after I got back from my course, we were doing like a series of pitches, like 48 hours after coming out of the wilderness. I wouldn't recommend that, by the way, but it gave me a very clear study, a very clear data point on how it affected me. I used to get really nervous before those things. I was really, like a lot rides on my 20-minute talk about what this thing's going to be. Like at the end of 20 minutes, the person could say, that's great. Here are millions of dollars. Like for real. That's how it can work.
Yeah.
There's a lot at stake there. I sat down for this pitch and Hugh sends me a message, a text, and he's like, you seem really calm. And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm, because you front like you're calm a little bit before those things, but it's a little bit like, another human can pick up anxiety and nervousness. Sure. And I'm just like, hey, everybody, let me tell you the story. And I was searching for the fear and anxiety because I was like, where is it? And it just wasn't there.
Wow.
And it really hasn't been there. I'm not saying I don't get scared or anxious. I get scared and anxious plenty, but I think the stakes have to be much higher for me to get scared and anxious after doing a Boss course.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, in your story, where this came full circle is when your house burned down. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. I felt like the wave of like, oh, right. I wasn't sure where you were going with the question. I was like, what will it be? Oh, right. My house burned down. Yeah.
And this was in the LA fires. What year was that?
January of 2025.
Yeah.
January 7th of 2025. And our house burned down. And then 2 weeks later, we were at my brother's wedding and our Airbnb got broken into and all the stuff that didn't burn was stolen.
Insane.
So that was the 14-day period that we had at the beginning of January. And I'm so glad you asked this question, because the other thing I learned on a Boss course was that I have a gear that I can go into that I didn't even know I had, right? The I'm broken, I've got nothing left in the tank, I can't go any further. And I learned on a Boss course because I didn't have a choice. Oh, I've got actually quite a lot after that, right? There's actually a lot more in my tank than I thought. And I really dug into that I think I'm mixing a metaphor here, but whatever. I like really dug into that reservoir after those two incidents happened because I have 4 little kids to take care of. Having your home burned down leads to an extraordinarily difficult year in ways that I couldn't possibly have understood. It was by a long shot the hardest year of my life. And it's tough on a marriage. It's tough on your children, which is tough on you because you're watching it be tough on your children. It's tough on your finance. It's tough on every single thing. It is a stressor on every single part of, I've been sober a long time. It was the first, I was like, I'll never think about drinking. Like I thought about drinking, it was really the pain became too acute. But I had this reservoir that I could go back to that I knew I had because I have tapped it on boss courses. And I also from Boston knew that I could be okay with not very much. That was an important part of it too. But it really was that over the long haul, what it's been is I have an extraordinary ability to deal with difficult situations because I've dealt with a lot of them out there. And again, I've only been doing it for 5 years, but a lot of like, what do you mean there's no way down? We're up on a cliff and we got to get, nope, I'm scared of heights, right? So how are we going to get...
Same.
And like that is a real difficult situation for someone who is scared of heights. And like, I've done that multiple times. And so I would hearken back to those lessons and it really helped me get through.
Yeah.
It was brutal though. I wouldn't recommend it. I recommend going on a boss course. Part of the reason I recommend boss courses so strongly is because, there's this, I think the first line of that great Scott Peck book of The Road Less Traveled is life is difficult. I think life is beautiful and wonderful. And I've had so much abundance and amazing things in my life, but life is also difficult. Everyone I know is going to die, including me. There's sickness, there is tragedy, there's all these things. And I don't get to decide what day they come my way. I don't get, Michael, I know I've got some difficulty. I'm going to be ready for it in July because I'm going to be relaxed then, right? But not the first 2 weeks because I'll be on vacation.
Yeah,
so
let me just pencil in that house burning in July. That'd be good.
Exactly. Like you don't know when it's coming, but it's coming.
Right.
And my boss course, and probably the same way that the stuff you've done and your story in the comfort crisis prepares you for it, like it prepared me for the difficulty. So I wasn't like, what the hell is this? I was like, oh, this is difficulty. This is extreme difficulty. I know how to do this. I don't like it. I don't want to do it again, but I know how to do it.
Yeah. If someone, for whatever reason, can't do a boss course, and I think they should, what's like one skill they could immediately use that you found useful for the average person?
Shelter and fire. I chose 2. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Shelter because as I learned on that first night, there's just never a moment where, I'm like about to run out of gas in the middle of nowhere and I'm like, we'll be fine. I got lost on a hike with my kids 2 Christmases ago. And I figured out where we were, but the sun was going down and it was me and 5 kids by myself. And I was like, but I was like, I looked around and I was like, okay, I could build a debris shelter up there. There's tons of leaves around. The weather looks okay. We're going to be fine. Like, so instead of freaking out about how are we going to get out of here, I figured out we were okay, which it was almost like giving the fear part of my brain an abacus to go play with. And so then I could focus on, wait, is this the trail we were on? And so I got us out of there. My brain was able to like do what it needed to do instead of like, holy crap, what are we going to do? So shelter is huge. Like anyone that spends time in the outdoors, I would say knowing how to build shelters, like you can be a crappy navigator if you know how to build shelter. And fire is one of the deepest spiritual experiences that I've ever had. Like there's a capability feeling to it. There is an excitement to it. There's all kind of practical reasons to have fire, right?
Do you remember the first time you were able to start a fire without a lighter?
I danced around like Tom Hanks in Castaway for real. Like I was by myself on my solo. I had not gotten fire until solo, which comes toward the end of the boss course.
Yeah, so you're alone
where you're
out
by
there.
yourself in the wilderness. You've theoretically accrued the skills that you need to be alone in the wilderness. And a lot of people had gotten fire before then, and I was like, I'm not going to get it. And I got it. And I was like that scene in Castaway. By the way, that scene in Castaway came from Boss. Boss instructors were the technical consultants on Castaway. So they taught Tom Hanks how to build fire. Dave Westcott, the founder I've mentioned, taught Tom Hanks how to build that plow fire, which is the hardest fire to build. I got fire and I stood up and I was like, yes, I've made fire. And then I cried. And I talked to someone when I got back. I said, it's this deep experience that I had when I made. So I made a bow drill fire and I cooked my dinner that night. I ate dinner because I was able to make a fire by, rubbing two sticks together effectively. It's not quite, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Using an ancient mechanical advantage. That's what I did. And I made every piece of that myself with my hands. And I built it was just, and a friend of mine said to me, he said, it was deep and profound because it's inside you. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you're here because your relatives figured out how to do that thousands of years ago. And the people whose relatives didn't figure it out are not here. So it is literally like epigenetically, the ability to build fire is inside you. And when you built that, you tapped into something ancient in you. And a really good ancient thing, which is this feeling of like, okay, I could build a fire like with my hands and a knife. And it was incredible. And it's so fun to teach. I teach it to kids all the time. Most of my kids know how to do it. My son's like bored with it now. He's like, oh God, are you going to teach fire again, Dad? But like, yeah.
Awesome. What does adventure mean to you?
I was going to use the second part of adventure in defining it, which would get me in trouble in college. Joyously going into the unknown. Awesome. It's like what's over there? And so I can have an adventure on a hike, in Topanga Canyon when I'm like, what is that little spur trail? Something I never would have done before Boss, right? Like we, don't tell the rangers. I've just told the rangers, but we'll go in cowboy camp in the state park around here. Good luck finding us, by the way.
Yeah.
Because there's no tent. We just lay down on the ground where we are on a tarp and sleep. And that feels like adventure. I can sometimes, if we're on the right ridge, I can see our house. But we're out there and it's definitely adventure for my kids. And my kids will be like, if they see me bring a tent on a camp out, they're like, oh, Dad, you're bringing a tent? We're not going to cowboy camp and look at the stars?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I think, too, what's interesting about your definition, I totally agree with it. I also think that the first step is often not joyous. To go back to your time sleeping in the dirt, you had to go through the hard part of it to then have this mindset shift where you go, oh my God, this is amazing. What have I been missing? But if you never take that first step and are willing to have it be hard, have it be uncertain, have all these things go wrong in the process, you never end up with that complete shifting of how you see those experiences that fundamentally change you.
I'm so glad you said that, because when I tell that story, I make it sound like if I were listening, I would go, oh, he just takes the spur trail and never has any fear. He just lays down on the ground with his kids in the middle of nowhere. There's always the first step that there's something in here that tells me not to take the first step. But what about this? But what about that? I have a chapter in my book called, But What About Bears? Yeah. Because a very common question among the laptop class to whom I'm usually pitching Boss is and they're lit up like this, and then you can see them go, but what about bears? It's okay. And now I've learned because of Boss, there's only black bears around me. They haven't been seen in a really long time. They are not aggressive. I know how to deal. But it's the what about bears question that keeps me from taking the first step.
Totally.
And then I'm locked in this place where I have no adventure in my life. And I'm theoretically not taking risk, But the long-term effects of that there's so much more downside and risk to not doing that than there is when I, cowboy camp with my kids in the state park or take the spur trail I've never taken before. And there's a voice, even when I cut down that trail, it's like, it's 4:00 and, it might be sun's going down and you don't really have the men. You might be, you're going to be that. My voice does because I'm a writer, I do the voiceover of the show where I'm lost, going against most of his Boulder Outdoor School survival training, Carson took the spur trail with only a third of his, and I'm just like, oh, Jay, come on. Like, just, But it definitely, it's just fear. And it's like getting over, I'm so glad you said that. The fear hurdle before Boss was like, how big can I make it, right? To do any of the new stuff or hard stuff. Boss took the fear hurdle to about this big. It's still there, but my ability to get over it is, I have a much greater ability to get over that fear hurdle. So I have so many more like beautiful and adventurous experiences now.
There was this study that looked at safety on outdoor courses for teens, because that's a common thing with parents, right? Well, they might get hurt. And it actually found that kids were more likely to get either killed or severely injured at home, living normal life.
Oh, yeah.
Because car accidents, because, maybe you don't realize, but they're into drugs or XYZ, like all these other things can happen. They're actually just safer in the wilderness, which is fascinating. And to your point about the bears thing, I get that all the time too. Bears,
what about bears?
It's like that book, A Walk in the Woods. Do you remember that book? He spends like 50 pages on bears, and you're like, has anyone ever been attacked by a bear on the Appalachian Trail? I don't think so. Why are we talking about this?
So. Yeah, exactly. Because our brains go to, because of Hollywood.
This is your fault.
We don't know how to make something dramatic, and so we're like, well, what about if a bear attacked him? I mean, you go to places where there are grizzlies, right? I'm never in a place where there's an aggressive grizzly ever.
Yeah.
Most
places are, unless you're listening from Montana, then there are some. But even then you go, okay, bear spray, am I making noise? Like most big animals do not want to mess with you. They have the same reaction to you that you have to them. They're like, I don't want to mess with this person. Like, screw it, I'm out of here. Because it's a threat to their safety too. We have guns and bear spray and we trap them and all these things. So I think that is a massively outsized fear people have, is of wild animals. Really, it's the weather that'll kill you. But if you learn all this boss stuff and you pack, and even if you don't have the boss stuff, but you know how to pack the right gear, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, be able to find water, build shelter, make fire, and have the confidence to know how to do those things, and you can stay calm and get yourself through the situation. I don't want to die, period. No. I don't want to die having tried to avoid all risk in my life, and look back at, I hope it's 95, right? And go, gosh, I had the physical ability. I can't bring my dad. We have 70-somethings take boss courses, by the way, if you're listening. Awesome. And you're like, how old could I? 18 to, we've had a 76-year-old do a 14-day.
Amazing.
But my dad's in his mid-80s now. My dad can't do a boss course at this point. He's fit for someone in his mid-80s, but I know some mid-80-year-olds that can't do it, but that can do it rather. But I don't want to be in my mid-80s at a period where I physically can't do it anymore, be outdoors anymore, be adventurous anymore, and think, man, I avoided theoretical contact with bears and kept myself safe in my little bubble here and missed out on my life. And yeah, the padded playground approach to parenting, it hasn't made kids safer, and it's made them much more unhappy. This is all this, parenting theory that I subscribe to, but when you don't let a kid experience reasonable risk, then they seek it out even more intensely once they're out from under your control.
Right.
Right. Then it's like, I never got to do anything even remotely risky. I'm going to go for it. Right. I'm going to drive my car 85 miles an hour and race people down the freeway. And that's way more dangerous than let's go camp out on the ground.
Yeah, totally. Well, Jay, thanks for coming on the show, man. That was awesome to
chat.
My
gosh. It's such a pleasure. And thank you for I said this to you privately, but I say it here, like, thank you for helping me understand and for helping so many other boss students. Like, I feel like it's like required reading for a boss course. The comfort crisis helped me make sense of the power of that program, the power of what we do out there. Like, I thought a little bit that I might be crazy. And then I read your book and I saw the science of why I was having the response to this and your experience. And it's probably what led me to really dive into becoming an instructor at Boss, was
That's
because
awesome.
I was like, this is backed up. Like, this is real. What I'm experiencing is replicable for everyone. So yeah,
Well,
really,
I'm super
grateful.
psyched to read your book. What are the two finalists for the titles so people know what to look for?
People can vote.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to lean people one direction or the other. There's 2 birds, 1 stone. So remember, our subtitle is how to learn survival skills and get happy in 235,000 difficult steps, because that's how many steps we took on our course.
Oh, awesome.
A student mistakenly left her Fitbit in her sock, or it was sewn into her pants or something, and so we knew literally how many steps we took. And then the other, so 2 birds, 1 stone. And then the other is what doesn't kill you makes you happier.
I like them both.
I like them both too, but okay. So I like the first one and everybody else likes the second one. So people can tell
Put
me
up
which
to
one is
listeners.
good.
If you're watching this on YouTube, put your vote in the comment. If it's a podcast, shoot me an email and I'll relay the info. All right, man.
Great.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks so much, Michael. I really appreciate it. Total pleasure.
Next, we're going to bring on my good friend, Sinway Xavier. Sinway recently sold his house, but unlike most people, he didn't just go automatically buy another. Instead, he packed up his truck with all his belongings and he started traveling across the American West in the tradition of van life. But he also goes into some really remote, extreme places and very strange small towns. And what he has learned along the way is really important for our sense of adventure and how we want to live a good life. It turns out that adventure and finding it is one of the most important things we can do for our physical health, our mental health, and this time that we spend on Earth. And it also turns out adventure is much easier to find than we might think. So he's going to give us lessons for exactly how to find it, no matter who you are, where you live, and what constraints you have. Let's bring him on. All right. Sinway, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's I'm glad we were able to pull it together.
Especially because you are in the middle of nowhere. Where are you?
I'm actually just outside of Zion National Park, between Zion and Hurricane. I'm on my way to Flagstaff at the end of this week and giving a presentation on one of the routes that I put together called the Utah Traverse at Overland Expo.
So about a month ago, you were rolling through Las Vegas. We met up and you told me you sold your house and decided to live out of the truck for a while, unknown amount of time. Take us back to that. What prompted that?
Well, I gave myself till June 1st.
Okay.
And what prompted it was, I was living in Vail, Colorado, and it was such a terrible winter. I think the West in general, we've had a terrible winter.
Like no snow, meaning terrible, meaning no snow.
Yeah, terrible winter, no snow. I mean, and living in a ski town, there's nothing to do. And I found myself just going, cabin fever. What am I doing here? A lot of time not getting those endorphins that I'm used to getting during the winter on the mountain skiing or snowboarding. And I decided to put everything into storage and just kind of hit the road. And I gave myself to June 1st because my son gets out of school June 4th. And I wanted him to have a landing pad to spend summer. When I told my son I'd give myself till June 1st, I was really excited about here's this time frame. But then he asked me why. And I was, that's a good question. And he was like, Dad, let's spend summer on the road. Let's go up the coast and go into Canada. He has a sleepaway camp in Maine in the middle of August. So that's our landing spot.
Oh, so you've extended this since we met.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is
so
awesome.
Now it's into August and I'm really psyched about it. It's super fun. And there's definitely, I feel fortunate that I have the luxury of being able to, get an Airbnb every, couple weeks, or I can jump into a hotel room, or I have a vast network of great friends that I can, call and say, hey, can I, crash in your driveway or stay in the guest house, for a day or two. So yeah, it's been pretty great.
What has been the best part about, so for context for listeners, I mean, you've done serious overlanding. You're familiar with living out of a truck. You've done that a couple of times. How has the game changed, though, once you've really elongated the time span and now it's, instead of a week or two, now it's like all the way till August?
It's funny because I think you still break it up as a week or two. I'm in a mid-sized truck. I'm in an AEV Bison with a Go Fast camper on it. It's not gigantic. I have a 55-liter fridge. I have to go back to the store every now and then. I mean, if I could, I would be out, as long as I could. But I make it into civilization every 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
And then I'm really mapping out, between my projects. So, tomorrow I go to Ojai to shoot for AEV. And then from there, I go to Flagstaff to give a presentation on the Utah Traverse. And then I go from there to Boulder, Utah to shoot for Stetson. So those are my determining points of bouncing around the West.
I feel like there's a good lesson in there for the average person, that when you think about doing that, it becomes this giant equation of how am I going to do this? We're going to be out so long. But really, it's like, just go places and you can drive into town at any point and be fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Scott Brady, he is the founder of Overland Journal, we did a really big motorcycle ride from Bogota to Venezuela 12 years ago.
Awesome.
And I was very intimidated by it. And he looks over at me and he goes, Sinway, how do you eat an elephant? And I was like, what? He goes, one bite at a time. And that's the way, every big expedition I've been on, you can't get caught up on the whole picture, or else you're just overwhelmed, because everything changes, from day one to even on a week-long expedition, a week-long trip. I hate using the word expedition. A week-long trip, your idea of what's going to happen to day 7, it always changes.
Yeah.
Weather changes. Your car changes. Your vehicle that you're in. People get sick. Everything changes. And being able to adapt to that change is such a major key.
Yeah, it's kind of like climbing a mountain, right? You just kind of put one foot in front of the other and can I make it to that ridge? Great. We did
Exactly.
it. Excellent. Now we got to do more.
Yeah.
You just kind of, like you said, eating an elephant. What's been the best part so far for you?
It's really the freedom. It's the freedom and meeting the people out on the road. And by that, I don't mean other travelers. They're great as well. However, it's, you end up spending so much time alone, that when you go into this small town, you're not kind of afraid to break the ice and have a conversation with someone, and really get to know, what's this, and especially with my mission right now, it's, what's it like living in Mount Carmel, Utah? What brought you here?
Yeah. What have you learned from people you've talked to?
It's right now in our climate, our worldly climate, it feels like people are really open to, there seems to be a niceness out there, if that makes sense. People are just more interested in what you're doing, what you're up to, what got you on the road. And it could be, because I am on the road and I am feeling more open to learning about people, as opposed to in the past when I was out for a week at a time, there was always a bit of a mission to get done. I was in a hurry. That's all gone now. I can spend a half hour chatting with the old lady in Hanksville. Now,
I've been to Hanksville. There's old ladies
not much going on
not
there.
much left. A lot of cars, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember my favorite image of that town, and it's this tiny town in Utah, is that I feel like the dead parked cars outnumber the people by about 10-1. Like yards of houses will have like 20 cars that are all just decimated in the front yard. It's fantastic. It's just like this weird place, but there's something about it. You're like, I like this because I don't see anything like this in daily life.
No, it's a very interesting place. I just did a shoot 2 days ago out south of Hanksville. So I spent three days there, kind of in and out of town. And it's a wild place.
Yeah.
It's these ranchers, and, they've got this, the West is ruled by water,
mm-hmm.
and they've got the Fremont River, and they're going, all right, we're going to develop our alfalfa fields, and we're going to get our water before the Colorado and everything else takes it.
Yeah. So before you started getting into photography and everything, you were a professional ski mountaineer for the North Face, right?
I was, yeah. I was very fortunate that very early on, I think I was 16 or 17, I was picked up by the North Face, and Conrad Anker was my team manager, and he introduced me to Alex Lowe, who lived in Bozeman.
Give some context for people who aren't in that world. Like, this is like getting picked up by, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen of that world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that world.
Yeah,
it's the top of the pile. At that time, Conrad Anker is the Michael Jordan of mountaineering and climbing. And Alex Lowe at the time, he was very much the Scottie Pippen, or it could be vice versa. Alex was just an incredibly talented mountaineer, rock climber, and he happened to live 3 blocks away from me.
What did you learn from those guys?
Oh man, I didn't spend a lot of time. I actually have only sport climbed with Conrad, but I spent quite a bit of time with Alex, thanks to Conrad, learning rope work in the mountains. And that was because before that I could climb stuff, and I would get up on top of a peak and ski it, and I thought that was the thing.
Yeah.
But Alex really taught me, about reading the mountains, reading weather. He taught me how to turn back, seeing something and going, this isn't worth it. On more occasions than not, we'd be down in the highlight range, and he was like, we're not going to ski this. We're going to turn around. You
eventually turned around from the sport entirely because you noticed that so many other climbers were dying, right?
Well, it wasn't even... So I was focused on the skiing of it.
Yeah.
So the climbing part of it was just so I could ski something.
Right.
It wasn't, Alex was very much, and Conrad, they were the climbers of it. And yet there were a lot of deaths that happened, a lot of big accidents, a lot of avalanches. And I just, I was probably 23, 24, mid-20s, and I didn't want to die.
I want to read a Hunter S. Thompson line to you that I feel like kind of encapsulates what we're talking about here. He said, "The edge, there is no honest way to explain it because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over." How do you react to that?
I mean, it's the truth. And I think so many people live in this safety bubble because we're so conditioned, so advertised to that this is what we're supposed to do. This is how we're supposed to live. And I've done that, from skiing, mountaineering, to photography, to directing. And I've never felt more happy and more free. And to me, that that happiness comes from the freedom of waking up in the morning and going, oh, wow, I heard about these petroglyphs north of Kanab. I'm going to go figure out what those are. And Michael, the other day, I was on a petroglyph hunt. I go to these petroglyphs, and as I get out of the truck, and I'm fixed on these petroglyphs. My eyes are on the petroglyph.
Yeah.
An eagle falls out of a nest that's 15 feet above these petroglyphs and flies away.
Whoa.
And then I hear its little chicks squawking. To me, that's priceless.
And you wouldn't have got that had you done the most efficient thing, right? I think there's a metaphor with so much of what you do that you do not take the most efficient routes, whether it's through careers from point A to point B. Like, what's the lesson in there for the average person?
I don't know what the lesson is, but for me, I've always chased the aesthetic of it. Like, what's the most beautiful way to get from point A to point B?
I feel like when most people travel, there becomes this, okay, we're going to go to Europe and we have our perfect itinerary. Do you think people, especially Americans, with how big and different our country is in all different places, do you think we could do a better job just exploring America?
I think the mistake most people make is they're chasing the postcard. They're chasing the Instagram post. They want to have the same sunset that they saw from that influencer or that person. And I think that's one of the magical things about sunsets is, yeah, you know you're going to get a sunset. It could be incredible. It could kind of flop on you too. But people get caught up in chasing someone else's experience instead of just letting that experience unfold for themselves. And if there's anything I've learned over the years is as soon as I let go of my expectations and comparing my experience to someone else's experience, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
That's where I'm open to letting wherever I am at that time just happen. And that's the magic. That's the magic of it's your own experience. Nobody else had that. Nobody else saw that sunset from that spot that you were at. No one else, had that epic hike into the waterfall and got that blister and pushed through it. And, it's yours. And that's what makes it special.
If people want to start exploring the areas around like where they live and just in the country, where do you tell them to start? You spent so much time on the road, living out of your truck.
Well, I always think, and I get this question a lot, and I always look back at myself in Bozeman, and it starts off as a little ring, right? It goes from, there's the trail down by the river. There's that other trail that goes a little farther. You don't have to go out for 6 weeks and not see anybody.
Yeah.
Start with your comfort level. I tell my new dads and new moms, I'm like, if you want to take your kid camping next year, start in the tent in the backyard where if they get scared, if it gets windy, if there's noises, you can go inside.
Yeah.
But start close where it's an easy ripcord to go back to that safe zone. And then as your confidence builds, you get farther and farther away. And the farther you get away from other people, for me, is really where the special things happen, where you're able to disconnect and you're able to have that experience that's all yours.
Yeah. I think too, just from a practical travel standpoint, going to the chain restaurant, the chain hotel, you know what you're going to get. You're like, yeah, it'll be decent. I kind of know what to expect. But I found some of the most fun that I've had in weird towns is you go to that like quirky weird hotel and you stay there. Sometimes it's amazing. It's better than the Marriott or whatever. Other times you're like, oh, this place is a dump. But still you get a story from it. And same with the local restaurant. It's like it gives you a better flavor for the environment you're in, the people that live in that place, and it's so much more memorable. Like, I'm never going to remember the Residence Inn in X town, but I do remember the Shamrock Motel in Texas on Highway 66 or Route 66 I stayed on. And it's just like those, it just gives you these little memories and experiences that are harder to find if you kind of do the known route, if you will.
And why do they make those hotels, the Residence Inn, even the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton? Why do they make them that way? Because you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
You know, it's this optimization of, I want to go to this place that I know that the towels are going to be great. I know the bed's going to be great, you know, but no, do we want to get bed bugs? Definitely not. But do we want to meet some weird lady that's got a parrot behind the counter? You know, like,
Absolutely.
Yes, we do. Yes, that's
100%.
what we want, you know? And look, there's nothing I appreciate, you know, sometimes you just want to go someplace, and especially with work, you know, sometimes you want to know that they're going to have a printer, that they're going to be able to take care of you.
Totally.
And those are the times. Other times, it's great to have this insane adventure.
Final two questions. You're one of the top people in overlanding. What's the perfect overlanding vehicle in your mind?
I don't think there is a perfect overlanding vehicle. I think it's whatever you have. I used to think, and it evolves with your needs. I used to think it was a wagon. If we're talking a wagon, I would say it's, you know, the Defender, Land Cruiser, the Prado. What are they? You have the Lexus.
Yeah, it's the Lexus Prado 460, right. GX 460.
So I think that it's all about how you travel, and that all changes.
Yeah.
You know, it's what you need. I am now, you know, in my AEV Bison, and this is the first non-Land Rover product I've had since 1995, 96.
Wow.
I never thought I'd be a truck guy. You know, it didn't make sense to me. After I spent some time in Australia and saw the way they built their trucks, the way, here's your driving, this is all your gear in the back. I don't hear anything rattle up front, you know, which is pretty incredible. You know, like that's a nice little thing. I've spent a lot of time on motorcycles, and for motorcycles, you know, I would say that if you can, it's the 1200 GS, because you can go anywhere in the world and rent a 1200 GS. You can go anywhere in the world and you're going to find parts for a 1200 GS. You know, that was the argument. And I guess that could be the argument for wherever you go, get whatever you can afford to rent, and don't get caught up in all the gear.
Yeah.
You know, like I drove from Lisbon to Marrakesh one time, and I had my camera bag and a duffel bag, and that was it. Awesome. I think we maybe had the toolkit that comes with the Defender and some jumper cables. But people get so caught up in the gear of like, oh, I can't do this trip because I don't have a rooftop tent. Of course you can. Sleep in the back.
Yeah.
You know, like do the trip with what you have, and don't get caught up just because some guy's got some $100,000 build and he's posting all this stuff on Instagram. Like, you don't need that.
Totally.
You know, because we've gotten so far away from what overlanding should be, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. But it's not about having the rooftop tent and the fridge and all the recovery gear and all the stuff. It's about traveling and meeting people and eating that weird food and ending up in the back of some muchacha's house, killing the chicken that you're going to eat later.
Awesome.
Sorry, vegetarians, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah. Speaking of food, final question. You know your way around a good gas station. What is your go-to gas station snack haul?
I think that there's this brand of gas station out there that has happened called Maverick.
Adventure's first stop, baby.
Adventure. I mean, their advertising's corny, but holy smokes. If there's a Maverick, I will drive out of my way to go to it, because their pork chili burritos and their bacon cheddar egg breakfast burritos are insane.
Dude,
they're really good.
We got a Maverick 15 minutes from my house, and my wife is like, would you go get me a Maverick breakfast burrito? And
they're
so good.
And I've zero affiliation with them, but they have knocked the gas station out of the park.
Yeah.
Like, it's an incredible... My son, he's like, Dad, can we go to... Because they don't have Mavericks in California yet, or they're kind of making their way in. But he's like, Dad, can we go to a Maverick? As soon as we cross into Nevada, can we go to a Maverick?
I love it. Barring that, let's pretend I'm not at a Maverick. And if I'm at a Maverick, this changes the game. But my gas station go-to, Diet Dr. Pepper, corn nuts. I need to have the risk that I may break a tooth at any given moment in my snack. And then finally, Bubblicious. Because when the snack is done, you got to get the corn nuts out of your teeth, and you want to blow some bubbles along the way. That is my final. And then I'll also add, if I'm going into the mountains for a long time, I have a friend, Laura Zara, who just goes out like forever. And she lives in a cave. She got me on eating those sleeves of donuts before.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, 700 calories in a sleeve, and they're just unbelievable, but probably the most unhealthy thing a human could eat. But before you're going to go out in the backcountry for a while, it's like, you got to get those donuts and then a Bic lighter just to have, because one is none, two is one.
Right. Okay. So in that regard, I always do the pretzel, the peanut butter filled pretzels.
Oh, so good.
Watermelon Sour Patch Kids or Sour Mike and Ike's. And then coming back from being out in the backcountry, for whatever reason, there's always an In-N-Out burger in my life.
Oh, yeah.
I will go get an In-N-Out and just sit. And the cultural viewing when you're in your first In-N-Out after being out for a while, you're just like, wow, this is it. This is America. It's such a cross section. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we need to start talking about this $5,000 point A to point B trip, and we got to set aside $9 for In-N-Out for each of us afterwards.
When we fly back into LAX.
I love it, man. All right, man. Well, Sinway, thanks so much for coming on, man. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks for checking out the show. Before we go, I'm going to tell you a quick phrase that I have learned in my own adventures that I have found have really helped me. So for my books, I will travel to the Arctic for a month. I've gone to war zones. I've gone into the middle of the Bolivian jungle. All of these trips, they always have something that goes completely sideways. Just things go totally off the rails. Now, when I first started doing my reporting trips into crazy places, when things would go bad, I would freak out. Go, oh my God, this is not going how I planned. Things are going to be terrible. But then when I sat down to write, I realized that all of those things going wrong, all of those problems were actually what made the story that much better. When things go perfect in your life, you don't leave with a good story. And so this has led me to come up with a phrase, and it is this: no problem, no story. Think about how you can apply that to your own life. When a problem comes along in your life, and it inevitably will, what story are you going to tell yourself about it? And what story are you going to tell other people about it? And you will find that sometimes those problems, and we oftentimes have to seek them out in modern life because modern life is so problem-free, that is what makes life interesting and worth living and telling other people about. So thanks to Sinway and Jay for coming on the show. New episodes are dropping twice a week. Please keep an eye out for more. We're always open to your questions for our Ask Michael Anything section. Drop them in the comments or send us an email at media@twopct.com. Do not forget to hit subscribe. The overlords tell me that is very important, and we would appreciate that. As always, have fun, don't die, and get out and find some adventure.